Our special guest is a fantasy football analyst and writer for NFL Network and NFL.com. He's been with the network since 2011, known for his work on NFL Fantasy Live and Good Morning Football. He's been with NFL.com since 1995. Irreverent is the word most often used to describe him. And by the way, he hosts the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank, where he talks about, well, the Bears.
The Bears.
So, thanks for joining us, Adam. I appreciate it very much.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I don't know if that means you're a Bears fan or not. If that is, that's pretty cool. And it's kind of fun this time. It's the first time in a long time where the draft feels pretty boring. I'm like, hey, it doesn't feel as exciting. I'm like, yeah, well, you guys aren't drafting Caleb Williams. It won't seem as exciting. But yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Well, this is NFL Draft Week. Pittsburgh is the place. 3 days of fans rolling around in the glory of professional football. And we want to get Adam's take on the players he's projecting in the first round beginning this Thursday. But before we do that, I know this sounds a little odd, but Will, you need to unzip your jacket here very quickly, just to let know Adam know that he's in the midst of a group of FTPs, and
right. At least there's one thing we can all agree on, right?
Yeah, the Packers.
That's right. Any day, anywhere, anytime. That's our motto. Let's talk about some football, because we've got the draft coming up here. Looks like it's going to be a couple of days of good weather, at least from what I've seen initially. But you know how the weather forecast changes. But this looks pretty good. This looks like a. I know that you said, hey, you know, the Bears don't have a whole lot to get excited about, but there's a lot to be excited about in this draft. Every year, we kind of get off of our direct to the veins feed of the NFL, and you know, we starve for a few months, and now the draft comes around, and it's time for us to take a look at who you think and who you're projecting are going to be the picks in the first round. And we might as well start off with number one. It's a quarterback, surprise, surprise, a guy who used to play for Cal, but moved on, went to Indiana. I think it kind of paid off for him. So this fella, you're projecting to go someplace out west.
Yeah, believe it or not. And this was one of your ACC guys there. He was a good enough quarterback for Cal. I remember when he went into the transfer portal, we weren't quite sure what we were going to see out of him. But then, you know, Fernando Mendoza becomes this sensation, leads Indiana to the national championship. It seems so surreal right now to think of Indiana as the pinnacle of college football, but that's where we are. And you know what? Feels like it's a fait accompli that he's going to be a member of the Raiders, so much so that he's already there in Las Vegas. Flew in, hung out with Kirk Cousins, and I'm like, oh, they're watching film. I'm like, what were they doing? Watching Lord of the Rings? Like, what are those dorks up to? Like, typically when you go meet your friend in Las Vegas, you're like, yeah, let's go down to Fremont Street. We're gonna go hang out at the Legacy Club or whatever. Uh-oh. But nope, they're out there watching film, getting ready, and I think this is going to be a nice change for the Raiders to have some stability at the quarterback position and somebody they can build around that really hasn't been there since Derek Carr was there. So this will be a pretty good opportunity for them to try to right the ship there.
Well, his little brother is doing pretty well from what I understand, and probably has the starting position, I wouldn't say completely locked up, but pretty close at Georgia Tech from what I've seen of the spring football. So must run in the family. We'll find out, I guess, later this year. At number two, who and what and where are they headed?
Okay, well, this is the thing. I want to point out to everybody that my mock drafts are not like a predictive pieces. It's not like watching Peter Schrager, who's like, "Hey, I've been talking to all these decision makers, and this is where we're going." Like, listen, I'm out here, much like I do in the fantasy football space. Mm-hmm. I will just sit here and tell teams what they should do. Like, this is what you should do. Last year, I told Jacksonville, I said, "Listen, Draft Tyler Warren. That's the guy you should go after. They didn't listen. They went and they drafted Travis Hunter. Now, for one season, I was on top. I'm gonna take my victory lap here. Doesn't always work out though. I've had some misses, but I would rather tell teams what they should do. And I know there's a couple of great edge rushers, Arvell Reese, David Bailey are going to be available to him. But at the same time, I think the Jets need to be a little bit more proactive on the offensive side of the football. So I'm going to say go out there, get yourself Carnell Tate, and put him out there with Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall. Go out there and have a little bit of fun. It's kind of like when you're playing golf. You're like, listen, if you're going to play bad, be fast. And if you're going to be a bad football team, at least score a lot of points. And that's what I want to see the Jets focus in on right now, going out there and scoring the points.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that analysis of the Jets, not in any way whatsoever. Will?
Yeah, I want to follow up on that for a moment. And I'm looking at it this way. It may turn out Geno Smith is cooked, and the Jets are right back in this position next year, which gives them the opportunity to draft either Arch Manning or Dante Moore. Why not have another weapon for one of them to step in right away?
Yeah, that's part of the thinking too. Is like, listen, you're going to get your quarterback next season. Have them loaded up and ready to go.
Exactly. I want to skip around a little bit. Let's go to number 4, a player that we've seen in the ACC a lot, Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame, who is arguably the running back one in this draft and probably one of the better running backs we've seen. And putting him in Tennessee with a guy like Cam Ward, who clearly needs option. They have a nice receiver, Alec Imanor, who they drafted last season, but I think their big free agent receiver signing was Wandale Robinson. I think he's okay, but and quite frankly, their run game hasn't very good. Put Love in the backfield, and he's gonna do really good things. He's a great pass catcher too.
Yeah, that was one of the toughest things too, because over the last couple of seasons, we've seen the Falcons go with Bijan Robinson, we've seen the Raiders go with Ashton Genty, and both are great players, are good. But I know that Ashton Genty the jury might still be out on him, but I think he has a lot of ability, and will show it this season with Fernando Mendoza there. But neither one of those teams have gotten better after drafting running backs. So I always feel a little hesitation here. Like, should I be suggesting this for the Tennessee Titans? But I will point out that since Derrick Henry walked out that door, they put up back-to-back 3 and 14 seasons. And I think a lot of times when you have a bad breakup, you tend to chase somebody who is either exactly like your ex or not, just the exact opposite of your ex. And no disrespect to Tony Pollard, who filled in admirably. I think it's time for the Tennessee Titans to go out there and get an established running back to help out Cam Ward, a quarterback that, it's funny, I like a lot. I remember last season because, and if I want to be transparent with your audience, is that I do a lot of crash course studying on college football. I don't get as much opportunity to watch it during the season. I have kids who are 7 and 10. They both play football. I'm sorry, soccer to you Americans. They both play soccer. I coach both their teams. So I don't get to spend my Saturdays watching college football as I did before. But at the same time, I try to go back and deep dive and study and get up to speed as much as possible. Love Jeremiah Love. I love Cam Ward. I thought last year when I went back and really watched him and studied him, I think he's a quarterback with a lot of ability. I think he's going to be really good on the NFL level. You got to go out there and you got to surround him with as much talent as possible.
I want to move down to number 7 with the team that is in a lot of our area, the Washington Commanders, a team that I really like what you have here with taking Mekhi Lemon out of USC, because, and you outlined it on NFL.com. They have Luke McCaffrey, Treylon Burks, who flunked out at Tennessee, and they picked up, and Terry McLaurin's turning 31, early in the season, and just came off a season where he missed 7 games. They need skill position players to complement Jaden Daniels, and I think he would be a great fit right there.
Oh, it's embarrassing sometimes to sit here and look at some of these mock drafts. I don't want to call anybody out. That's not fair. But I think that anybody but listen, like anybody who says they should go defense, I'm like, what are you doing? You're now in the 3rd season of Jaden Daniels. You haven't extended him yet, and you don't have to extend him because, of the way that these rookie contracts work. This is when you should be taking advantage of this. I would go out there and I would draft Mekhi Lemon. And again, if somebody wants to come at me and say I like Kenyon Shadiq or somebody like that, I'm fine. Like I don't care who it is, whatever offensive, even if Jeremiah Love falls to them, whomever it is on the offensive side of the football, you have to draft that player, making sure Jaden Daniels is the most comfortable he can possibly be. Should be paramount to it. I mean, it's not an exact science. I think anybody I was talking with somebody the other day, and I'm sorry, well, but it's somebody was like, listen, this isn't a perfect science. Look at JJ McCarthy. And I'm like, you know what? That's not fair. It's not fair.
Ouch.
I think again the idea should be to give him as much. And I will tell you, I'm actually not out on JJ McCarthy like a lot of people are. But I think for Jaden Daniels, if you want to be successful with this, you got to have offensive players around him.
Just out of curiosity, you obviously posted this a few days before the big trade with the
Yeah.
between Cincinnati and the New York Giants. Would that 10th pick change much if had the trade been announced beforehand?
Well, I had the Bengals taking Reuben Bain Jr., who this very controversial player. A lot of people are in and out on him, and it's funny because I liken this situation to what Jalen Carter was in a couple of years ago, where it had to be the right organization who was going to take a chance on him. The Bengals wouldn't seem like the kind of organization that should take a chance on Reuben Bain. I really love him. I think that any team that needs defensive help, I don't know where the Giants are going to look because, again, the Giants now have 2 picks in the top 10. I had them taking the Miami tackle, Francis Mauiga. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrong. I know. I got to practice that. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I really like where they're coming. So I think that they're going to go offensive line, and I think they're going to go offensive skill player with these 2 picks. I think the defense is even losing Dexter Lawrence. I think they're in a pretty good spot defensively. I think they can get by. But again, same type of situation what we're talking about with Washington. You got to go out there and make sure that your young quarterback is developing. I think that if Jeremiah Love falls to them, I would love to have a backfield of him and Cam Skadabu. Fantasy analysts would not like that because they want the solo back who's going to be taking all the carries. But I think if the Giants walk out of this with a tackle and an offensive skill play, and I don't mean that offensive linemen are not skill players, but the term that they use for that. If they walk out of this draft with 2 offensive players, I think the Giants. I thought this before the draft started. I was ready to be this. This is going to be the surprise team of 2026. They're probably going to make a push for the playoffs, probably may even make the playoffs. I think if the Giants are going to be able to pull this off, which I think they will, I really like what they got going on this season.
For people who don't understand the situation, can you explain why Reuben Bain's such a controversial pick?
Well, there was a like an incident with a car accident type of thing. I don't know. I got to be careful because I'm not that kind of reporter. So I want to be very careful with the way that I express this. But there were some questions about an incident that he was involved in that was part of his past. I'm sorry, I'm not Ian Rappaport and I'm not Tom Pelissero. So at the risk of getting something wrong, I don't want to be doing it. But there has been some hesitation for teams, and we see this too. And I'll go back to the Jalen Carter and the Jalen Carter draft where he fell, and there were some teams that would surprise you who would pass on somebody like Jalen Carter. When you think about Dan Campbell and the culture that he's created in Detroit, if there was a place that was very stable that you think could weather this storm, it would have been Detroit, but they passed on it. Seattle, they still had Pete Carroll as their head coach. They passed on them. Both those teams, I think, traded out of the top 10. And then the Eagles had to trade up with the Chicago Bears at number 9 or 10, I believe it was, to go out there and get him. And I think that we could be in another type of situation this way too. And depending on where this falls. Now, the way that I did my mock draft, I'm always going to I'm going to lean very heavily on the offensive side of the ball. I'm a fantasy football dork. I get that. I still feel that teams should be built through their offense and you should have a defense that's good. But what it comes down to is like, there's never going to be another 80, 85, 86 Bears. There's never going to be another 2002 Baltimore Ravens. I think this year's Seattle's team was very good defensively. However, you still had to go out there and score points. Look at what Houston's dealing with right now, like generational defense. But if you can't score points, it's not going to work out for you. So I think there could be a chance that he falls in the draft or something like that happens. And again, it'll end up being a team like Baltimore that ends up with them. The Dallas Cowboys could be somebody. Even the I don't know if the Rams are interesting too, because the Rams are one of those organizations that never draft for need. And Jim, I don't want to revisit some old stuff. I don't want to bring up old wounds, but like the year that Aaron Donald was drafted,
Yep.
the Bears were mocked Aaron Donald in every single mock draft you ever looked at. And the team who was drafting right in front of them was then the St. Louis Rams, who had they had Bobby Quinn, Chris Long. They had some other stud on the defensive line too. Like you would never think that they would have drafted a defensive lineman, and then the Rams did. And they took Aaron Donald, and obviously it led them to a Super Bowl. He was a generational player. I could see if Ruben falls and these teams get skittish, and I don't see the Cowboys or the Dolphins or the Giants maybe. I see a team like the Rams or the Ravens ending up with him, and I think that could be a huge boost for them.
All right, Adam. I'm going to put you on the spot here because this is a McCaskeyism, if there ever was one situation. If Bain drops to that sweet spot where the Bears can pick him, you know how the McCaskeys work, man.
Yeah.
Now George is a lot different than Mama Bear was. Okay.
Yeah.
I think he's leaving the football to the guys who actually understand football more at that level. I'm not saying George is stupid. I don't think he is. Nice guy. I've met him. I used to live pretty close to him when I lived out in that area. So, but do you think they'd take somebody like Ruben Bain with the questions that are surrounding him at this moment?
It's so interesting to even think about this right now because with the way that the Bears played last year, and it looks like a completely different organization ever since Ben Johnson took over just over a year ago. I didn't want to, I always do. I will be honest with you. When I do this exercise, I do sort of like play with it a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, how did the Bears, like last year, I remember like, how did the Bears end up with Mason Graham? Like, that's just amazing. And that was actually one of the players who I wanted. Funny enough, I had Colston Loveland as a top 10 pick last year. People thought I was an idiot because I had Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland as top 10 players. And people were like, that's dumb. I had Carolina take. I suggested Carolina take Colston Loveland. I think Ted McMillan's fine. Like you worked out just fine. Sometimes you don't need to listen to me. You know what you're doing. But that being said about Ruben Bain, I really thought about this. I'm like, should I just have him fall all the way down to the Bears? But it's like, then it's too transparent. I will say this, that if by some miracle, if Ruben Bain is sitting there at 25, he's going to be a member of the Chicago Bears, because I think that Ryan pulls down, not that Darnell Wright was the wrong pick. As a matter of fact, I think he's one of the better right tackles in the NFL right now. So that ended up playing out, but you're drafting in the top 10 at that spot. Like, is it worth risking your top 10 pick, especially when you had so many needs and you had a home run already waiting there for you with Darnell Wright? So it's a completely different situation sitting at number 25 with an organization now that feels like is on the right path, is going to be one of those teams that really will go out there and do something against the grain. They're kind of against what they used to do back in the day. I'm still of the belief, and if you look at this, I think that they're gonna draft on the offensive side of the football. If they don't get the safety that they want to fall to them, I completely see them doing something on the offensive side of the ball. However, if it's Ruben Bain Jr. sitting there at number 25, I would be shocked if he was not drafted by the Chicago Bears.
Well, I'm going to get into David Bailey here in just a moment, but the first thing I want to do is have you tell people when it comes down to the podcast, the Sick Podcast with Adam Rake, where can they find you and follow you on social media, and what platforms might they find the podcast on?
Oh, well, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to plug the podcast. Now, I will be honest with you. If you're a fan of the Chicago Bears, you want to be following the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. You can find it wherever you download podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all those places. We do a show on YouTube as well. Real easy to find. It's a Sick Podcast network. Mine's a Sick Podcast with Adam Rank, which focuses in on the Chicago Bears. That being said, we are also doing some fantasy football content on there as well. So if you can stomach it to wade through the Bears nonsense to get to some of the fantasy football stuff, it is going to be there. I will tell you too. It's funny because if you were following on like TikTok is usually where I do most of my fantasy stuff. I'm trying to get my fantasy spots or my social media accounts. Like, hey, if you're a Bears fan, you want to follow me on Threads. If you're a fantasy football person, you want to follow me on TikTok and kind of do it that way. Even though everything will always still come around and have some sort of Chicago bent to it. But you know what? And usually, if you just search out my name, you'll be able to find it. And if we could ever get that kid to cave in the UK, his name's Adam Rankin. He has Adam Rank on Instagram. And I'm like, bro, I go, I'll pay you for it. Like, I just want to have everything lined up where it's TikTok at, it's Adam Rank. Twitter is, twitter.com/, like everything's Adam Rank except for Instagram and Instagram and Threads too. But he's just squatting on it. He's like, no, I'm cool. I'm like, I don't think you're that cool because it's not even your name. If you were Adam Rank, that would be fine. Like I would be cool with it. Like, okay, yeah, like you beat me to the punch. You deserve this. But it's not you're Adam Rankin. Like it's different. I'll pay for it. Whatever. I'll take you to dinner. I'll buy you a Man City kit. Whatever it takes.
Good luck with that.
Nah, it's the worst.
Let's talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. That's sort of my second team.
Oh, nice.
Since the family, my wife's family is from New Orleans, so I've kind of gotten sucked into that. David Bailey out of Texas Tech, I think a solid edge, a good contributor. The Saints really are a mess right now, so they need anything and everything they can get. So, your thoughts on David Bailey? You've kind of lined him up here, and we're talking about talking about Tyler deserves it. Well, yeah.
Right. No, I mean, like, I think that if you could get a receiver for Tyler Shuck, and if Tater Lemon are there, I would certainly see. Now, this is the problem with these. This is based on my suggestion on what teams should do because people are hitting me. They're like, "Do you not think that you think that David Bailey's not a good player?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, he's still in the top 10. It's not like I had him going 25 to the Bears. And honestly, like if we look over these teams, if the Jets took him at number 2, I'm not shocked. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad pick. That's just not where I would allocate my resources. The Arizona Cardinals will probably have a decision between David Bailey and Arvell Reese. The reason that I put Reese in there is because number one, I'm still sort of a big school snob when it comes to Ohio State. I know that all the money's coming into Texas Tech, and at some point we're going to have to start viewing Texas Tech kind of like how we view Indiana right now because they're going to have so much money. They're going to be so competitive. And David Bailey is a good player. Again, if the Arizona Cardinals took him at number 3, I don't think that would be a shock. If the Tennessee Titans took him at number 4, that wouldn't shock me. The Giants might want to replace Dexter Lawrence. I know they're different positions because Dexter played on the inside. But if the Giants, Browns, like even the Browns, maybe the Browns are going to get rid of Garrett Miles or anything like that. Like there are situations where David Bailey could go as early as number 2. I think it's safe to say he's not going number 1. But I do believe that if this followed my pattern of me being like, hey, you should draft him, you should draft that. If New Orleans got into a situation where the two top receivers, and the two top receivers to me are Tate and Lemon, if those two guys are gone, and somebody, even if it's Arvell Reese who is available here in this spot too, I would draft him. Although Kenyon Sadiq is somebody who intrigues the heck out of me right now. But I think that Saints probably need to go defense, considering all these offensive playmakers would be off the board.
Will?
All right, I'm gonna come back to my team here in just a minute, but the discourse around Ty Simpson is something that has been very interesting because a lot of people don't think he's a first round pick, but then there's some who do. You have him in your mock draft with a twist, going number 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who clearly need a quarterback. We know Aaron Rodgers is just stalling and buying his time. He's going to come back probably and whatnot. But um, do you really like Ty Simpson as a quarterback?
I just think that, you know what, if you want to get the most out of Aaron Rodgers, the best way to motivate him is to draft his successor. Nothing got Aaron Rodgers more motivated than the Packers drafting Jordan Love. So if they could get Aaron Rodgers to commit this week to being their quarterback, signed, sealed, delivered, and then draft his replacement, like he'll go on an MVP run again. Um, yeah, I did this a little tongue in cheek because one of the formulas for these is always like, hey, draft put two quarterbacks in your mock draft. Like you get this sort of direction. I don't feel that way, but I do feel strongly about this. Ty Simpson is going to go in the first round. Somebody is going to draft Ty Simpson, and if it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think it makes a lot of sense for Pittsburgh to try to go in there because with Ty Simpson, you cannot start him this year. You don't want him to be your starting quarterback this season. You want him to sit and learn a little bit and afford him that opportunity to go out there and study and grow a little bit more as a quarterback. Now, I know the best way of growing as a quarterback is to play, but we've seen it other times in other places, even in Green Bay, where Jordan Love was able to floor. Like it was a very similar type of thing to Jordan Love going out there. But if it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers, somebody is going to make a move to get up and get Ty Simpson because you get that fifth-year option on him, that you're able to draft him. You don't have to start him right away. It's one of those situations that the NFL has really changed over the last number of years because I think it was Sam Bradford who was the last quarterback who broke the bank and just got so much money that it was obscene. And they're like, you know what? We need a new way of doing business. So this will afford a team. And you know what? If you have a team that wants to, move back up into the draft, the Arizona Cardinals are sitting there and being like, you know what? We want another quarterback. We want a quarterback on our bench to develop. Jacoby Brissett says he's not going to the workouts. You got Gardner Minshew there. The Cardinals could also be in play. You're not taking Ty Simpson at number 3, but at the back end of the draft, if you want to call up the New England Patriots or somebody like that and say, hey, let's do a deal. Then you go out there, you draft him, you get that fifth-year option on him, and you get your quarterback potentially of the future. Although I will say I'm not 100% sure that he's better than Carson Beck, but that's just me.
All right, I'm gonna get into my team, the Vikings. Yes, I do live in the land of your coworker Tom Pelissero. Um, you have them mocked with a safety, which I think almost the most obvious option because the secondary is not very good. Harrison Smith is at the end, whether he comes back or not, that's for another discussion. And you pick the Toledo safety, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, over, and I've seen a lot of other mocks take the player that's going right after Dylan Thiedemann to Oregon. Just kind of curious you're thinking of why him over Thiedemann.
It's the same thing of like I understand why a lot of people are picking Dylan to replace Harrison Smith, and I don't like it. I know what you're doing. It's kind of like if you have a left-handed a left-handed mobile quarterback, it's like, well, you can either compare him to Steve Young or Michael Vick, and there's got to be a very specific reason why you compare them. So I think it's too easy. It's too easy to go out there and just pick Dylan and be like, yeah, of course he would be. No. But I actually, going back, and I'll be honest with you, I had not seen a single moment of Toledo football until sometime around January when I went back and I really liked him. I thought that he's got a lot of ability and a lot of range. And sometimes you wonder when these guys, no disrespect to the MAC or anything like that. I would typically prefer a Big Ten player over a MAC player, but I thought Emmanuel, whew, I really liked him as a player, and he looks like one of those guys. I think I even wrote this in my piece where it's like he just looks like the kind of player like Harrison Smith is that you don't like. Like I don't like Harrison Smith at all. And it's only because he's a Minnesota Viking. Like there's nothing. I don't know him personally as a man, but he's just so good and he makes so many big plays. You're like, God, not this guy again. And I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren could certainly be that guy. Not that Dylan couldn't be, but I have him with a slight edge.
The player that one team likes but 31 others hate, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, one team loves him, nobody else likes him.
Yeah. A little further down, I just want to get into the wide receivers down at 23 and 24. Philadelphia taking Omar Cooper Jr. there. I don't know what the situation which is with AJ Brown. Maybe he gets traded draft night, but it just feels like he just is not happy there. And then right after the Cleveland with Casey Concepcion of Texas A&M, formerly of NC State. Just what do you see just with those two wide receivers right there? I really like both of them.
You know what? I honestly like both of them, and it's one of those things. I think I even wrote this too, if I'm not mistaken, in my piece, that if one of these two receivers is available for the Bears and like Ruben Bain hasn't fallen or something like that, I could easily see a scenario where one of where the Bears go back and draft another wide receiver and just have, you know what, you just need another one to replace DJ Moore. Even though Jade Walker, I thought, looked pretty well, pretty good last season, made some clutch catches. But the one thing that I like about Omar Cooper Jr. is his ability to go over the middle and make contested catches, which is something that I think that Philadelphia could really use. Use that toughness, use that kind of player to go out there. Also, can he play in a boring offense and not complain about it? Because I think that's the biggest thing that's been holding the Philadelphia Eagles. It's interesting to me that these stories keep coming out about Jalen Hurts. I don't know if you saw the interview with Howie Roseman last week, where he was talking about the stuff that came out about um, about the quarterback. Jeez Louise, Jalen. God, I can't think. Why am I brain farting? Jalen Hurts. Goodness gracious, I'm working through it right now. Where he was talking about Jalen Hurts, it wasn't. He didn't come out and say the report was wrong. He didn't come out and say like these are completely false allegations. I can't believe somebody said that. He goes, we got to figure out who these internal leaks are, which is like, we need to find out who's telling the truth on us. Who's the narc? Who's the snitch? It wasn't, because if it was anything else, like if it was like, hey, like he's a terror, like whatever it could be. Like sometimes we see these stories out. They will come out and categorically deny, like, this is false. People love Jalen Hurts. He is a great, you know, this and that. They were more concerned about, like, we can't believe somebody actually said this out loud, which was very telling to me. So I'm curious to see how this happens. I wonder too if this is Howie Roseman setting it up. So if they have to move on from Jalen Hurts, we're like, well, you heard people, like nobody likes him. Like I'm curious. You know, I'm really. This isn't the year to do it, or maybe it is the year to do it, because if you think about it, like the Eagles could trade him. They could go with Tanner McKee, and maybe for a season, and you know, see how that works out and then next year kind of align themselves with another pick, like they send Jalen Hurts somewhere. I don't know. That was a wild scenario that I tried to bounce off my editors, and they're like, you know what, stay in your lane. Like you're fine, but like do your thing. So I put Omar Cooper there. I believe, yeah, I think I had the Eagles have Omar Cooper if I remember this correctly. And then I had the Cleveland Browns taking Casey Concepcion. I really like this player. I didn't think of this until Lance Zierlein brought it up, but we were talking and he goes, "Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Doug Baldwin." And I'm like, "Oh," because it's one of those things that when you watch him play, you're like, "Who does he remind you of?" Like he's a good player, and you're like, "Oh man, who is it? Like who is the guy?" And when Lance said that, I'm like, "Oh my God!" Then you can't see it another way. It's like one of those TikTok videos where there's like, oh, if you're listening to Bad Moon Rising and like hear the words, there's a bathroom on the right. You're like, oh my God, I can't unhear that. That's the way it's been with me and Casey Concepcion to the point now I'm sort of getting obsessed with him. And I'm like, oh man, could he fall to Chicago or wherever he goes? I know he's probably going to end up being on my fantasy team. I actually, you know, it's funny because even though I think I had him going 24 to the Browns, I could see him going as early as where's Kansas City, 10 or 9? Like Kansas City could be another team that could use him too. So I love both those guys. Again, I don't think that NFL teams value receivers as much as I do, but I love both these wideouts.
Will, you got one more?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of close on a non-football
Okay.
question, if you don't mind.
Oh boy.
I'm just looking around. You talked about you have two kids, you coach their soccer teams. I've seen you do the Bears podcast. I've seen you doing Cal State Fullerton basketball games. I've seen you on Jim Rome ranking non-Skywalker Star Wars characters. I've seen you talking to the CEO of Metal Blade Records, Brian Slagle, talking about Bark at the Moon by Ozzy. Where do you get time for all this?
I don't know. I just drink a lot of coffee. I go, I gotta be honest. I'm afforded a great opportunity. Number one, being the fantasy football guy means our season's over in week 17, so I get to go home early. Like, all right, guys, enjoy the playoffs. I'm gonna go out and watch football. You know what? I just always, I don't know. I just have all these things that I love, and I just want to continue to talk about. I'm literally obsessed with soccer now, and coaching it and doing all that stuff. I'm also like I'm starting like we're doing club like we're moving the club like which I never thought I would be this person, but I'm moving to club soccer. Which by the way, if by the way, starting a new club soccer team means that we need to purchase all of our new equipment and everything like that. If you want to help me out, you can go find me on Cameo. I've knocked my price. We have a goal that we're trying to raise some money. I've knocked the price of Cameo down. So if you want a private message before the draft or whatever, if you want me to pull your draft order for your fantasy football draft, I've knocked that price down to like $35 because I'm like, yeah, because like I worked with the people of Cameo. Listen, Scott Hansen will charge you $400. You can get me for 35, and I will sit here and spend some time with you. Or if you're just like whatever, if you want to send me a DM, they cost $1, and then it goes into the pot. So I'm gonna we're $250 into our $5,000 fundraising goal that we hope to meet this year by me just doing dumb little cameos and stuff like that. But you know what? I just don't sleep a lot. I don't spend a lot of time. I don't get to watch as many TV shows as I would like. Like people keep talking about, oh, I've watched this series and I've watched that series. Where I'm like, yeah, I don't know. If I'm not drawing up soccer plays, I got a flag football team and I got this, I got that. But this is the time of year to do it. So I just go out there and just realize I'm not sleeping and just go out there and just try to enjoy as many different things as possible.
One thing you are absolutely right though about on the Star Wars thing, Han Solo #1.
Thank you. Yeah, I was
And
debating
he
too,
shot first.
yeah. You know what? And it's funny too, because I didn't know, like, because somebody asked me too, is he a Skywalker? And I'm like, he married into the family. Like, I never considered Arnold Schwarzenegger a member of the Kennedys, even though he married into the family. So I think it's very much a similar situation, but I think Han Solo's #1. Like, I wanted to get hot takey and put Kit Fisto or somebody like that, but I'm like, no, that's just dumb. Like, I don't make lists just to make lists to make people upset. I really do try to give you my own personal spin on this. And if you agree, cool. If not, then I hope we can still be friends.
All right, how do we send money to you? You've brought up all this stuff. You got to tap into it. You got to ask.
I got that. Listen, I got the Cameo. Cameo is the easiest way for me to do it. I know Cameo ends up taking like a part of it. I got to figure out. I don't want to do a straight up GoFundMe because I don't think that we're at that level. I think that kind of stuff should be saved for serious situations, that people that really are desperate for money. This is just a fun adventure. So that's why I do it on Cameo. If you go to cameo.com, you can look up. It's a thing where you can get video messages from. I'm going to loosely use the phrase celebrities. So if you want to go through it, that's actually because people have asked me like, can I just Venmo you money? And I'm like, no, that's not. I don't want you to just send me money for no reason. I want you to at least get something out of it. And if it's just a 5-minute video to rib your friend who's a Packers fan, to make fun of somebody, to mock or whatever, just like this, a little interaction. I would rather do it that way because then you're getting something out of it too, as opposed to me just holding out a can and being like, oh, I'm a poor. I just want to do it. I just want to make this, and then you feel like you're part of it too, and that's the way I would do it.
All right. So real quickly, I want to catch a couple other guys on this list that are ACC folks. We're going to stay in the NFC North here. Detroit Lions. You've got at pick 17. You're suggesting Blake Miller out of Clemson. Now, there's a couple players from Clemson that are in round one. Talk to us a little bit about what do you see out of these guys that are coming from Clemson and Dabo Sweeney.
Do you not like him? Did I make a mistake? Like, I don't know. You tell me. Did I miss this one?
No.
I like him. Like he was a high school wrestler. He started 54 games. He was an Iron Man, like those kind of things matter, you know. And I think with one of the biggest problems that the Lions had over the last year or so, even though they had a bad season, they were still a very good football team. And all they needed to do really is just tweak that offensive line. And I look at Blake Miller, and just a solid player. And I think that Dan Campbell has really done a great job of building a program of solid to great players. And I think Dabo does a lot of the same things. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very biased because I do like Dabo. And I know that he's gone on with my boss, Jim Rome, and done stuff like that. So I do have a little bit of affinity, but Clemson's still turning out quality players. I'm still not over the, what was it, Isaiah Simmons not working out. That was a guy, like you talk about mock draft with a twist, and a player that I was absolutely convinced was going to be the next great thing in the NFL. But I think Blake Miller is a solid, like athletic player who would go out there and fit in perfectly with the Detroit Lions. Like it's one of those things too, where you also like when we're doing this, obviously all these guys are accomplished college players who've shown a lot of ability. Who's kind of passing a vibe check? Like I always kind of do that. I'm like, I can see that guy playing for the Lions. Like I think there is something to be said about that. And sometimes when fits like that work out, I think it would be perfect. And I think Blake would be perfect for them.
I know you got T.J. Parker there at the end going to New England. The guy that really fascinates me, who I think is perhaps a bit underrated, is Akeem Mesidor out of Miami.
Yeah.
I love this guy. I think that he is. I personally think he has more upside than Ruben.
Oh, you think so?
I do.
Yeah, they were both. They're both so good, and that's the one thing too is like Miami, regardless what happened against Indiana, like very good football team, and they turned out a lot of players. And it's funny too because when you think of Mesidor, it kind of reminds me. And I know they don't play the same position. I'm not saying that they're the same player or anything like that, but it's kind of like when Ray Lewis came out. And Ray Lewis went all the way down at number 22. He was the Ravens' second pick of that draft because Jonathan Ogden went 4th overall. And then they came back at, I think it was 22, and they took Ray Lewis, and you kind of never realized how great he was because he was on such a really good team. And I think Mesidor could be that kind of player, like an effective pass rusher. His frame is perfect. Like he's got the ideal size. He's got a relentless motor, the kind of guy who just never gives up. I could see this is another, again, when I was sitting here and I was looking at what the Bears were going to be doing, and I had the Bears going offensive tackle. I think Caden Proctor was the guy I ultimately landed on for them. But Mesidor was another one of those guys. I'm like, if you are going to go defensive end, and he's available to you, and I'm assuming Bain's going to be going off the board. It's because like Bain also wasn't Bain the one too where it's like he's another one of those guys like his arms are too short or whatever it is, which always drives me crazy. I'm like, can he play football or not? It reminds me. I always go back to this as an example of like the Cooper Kupp situation. Like Cooper Kupp puts up all these epic numbers at Eastern Washington, and then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and he's an absolute stud. And you're like, all right, this guy's going to do great. Then he goes to the Underwear Olympics. His 40 times not great. They're like, well, no, he can't play football all of a sudden. I think Mesidor will do that. I think, I honestly, I think that he'll end up being one of those guys that he gets drafted at the end of the first round, maybe somehow slides to the second round, and teams, 5 years from now, you're like, how did he get past all of these players? I think there's a real possibility for that.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I watched him play. I tried to focus on Mesidor rather than Bain. I watched enough Bain because that's all everybody talked about.
Yeah.
So I focused on Mesidor, and I saw a lot of potential, and I think maybe even more than Bain. I mean, again, that's just me. And what do I know? I mean,
no. I think you're onto something like that. Actually, one of the things, and I have it here in my notes, as I'm sitting here cheating. I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at my notebook right now. I'm sorry. I try to prepare for you guys. Listen, I'm trying to be on this. I wrote that one of the things I really liked about him is that he knocks away the hands of the offensive linemen. And I think that's something that when you're trying to scout these defensive players, especially the guys who are the edge rushers, that now obviously he can go out there and he can run somebody over and bull rush him and do whatever he's got to do, but you can't do that every time. And at some point, like the offensive lineman gets himself in good position or something like that. It's those little moves of like knocking away their hands, because even if I know that everybody looks at the glory of like, hey, like he's getting sacks or he's doing this, but if you knock your hands away and get yourself in a good position to where even if you're not making the play, if you're redirecting the play, if you're moving somebody inside or doing something like that, and he does a great job of that, real heady, real positive, and I think that he can end up being an absolute stud in the NFL.
Totally agree, Adam. Hey, first timers on this show, we always ask the same question. What's your favorite food, and maybe what's your favorite restaurant where you live?
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious because my son was doing a golf clinic today, and that's one of the first things I asked him, like, hey, what's your name and what's your favorite type of food? He said pizza, which I'm like, pizza? Like you? I'm like, okay. Actually, that actually tracks because he made me stop at 7-Eleven the other day to get him a pizza. Pizza would also be a solid choice for me, but living out here in Southern California, I'm gonna say tacos. Tacos is the way to go. I love it. I love Mexican food. I love tacos. I'm always in the search. I'm always down to try someplace new. I do have some of my local spots. Funny enough, there's a place in Huntington Beach called Don Ramon's. I go to probably more than any place else. There's another local spot called Cancun. Oh, I'm sorry. Also forgot Miguel's Jr. Miguel's Jr. is not it's from my hometown. But Miguel's Jr., Don Ramon's, anybody in the Southern California area. So if all these ACC fans living up in Palo Alto or Berkeley, if you're ever down in the Southern California area, Don Ramon's. Fun enough about Don Ramon's, Dexter Holland of The Offspring eats there all the time. And I've seen him there on more than one occasion. And every time I always forget, I know who Dexter Holland is. And so I'll be like, hey, man. And then I realize, like, you don't know who I am. And I just keep walking. Like, hey, I'm like, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your day. And then I just keep going. But if it's good enough for the lead singer of The Offspring, should be good enough for you.
You got it.
Great band, by the way.
I love it. Adam Rank, NFL Network, NFL.com, analyst, writer, and the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank talking about the Chicago Bears, fantasy football, and a lot more. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you joining us talking about the NFL Draft, which is coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You can watch it on TV. It's on the NFL Network on ABC and ESPN. Starts at 8 on Thursday, 7, I believe, on Friday, and then noon on Saturday. Those are Eastern times, by the way. So I'm looking forward to it, and I know my wife is already starting to pull her hair out over it. So,
oh man, it's our jobs, though. Yes. We got to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having
Thanks,
a little
Adam.
bit of time in your busy day to come join us.
Thank you. The pleasure was all on this side of the microphone.